on me now.
Okay. All right. This is how we do it all night, all day, here in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Peru, Moscow, wherever we are at, we do it live. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the TruthWire. I am one of your hosts, Craig Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
That is Fiorella. Fee, you will be so proud of me. Throughout all my crazy travels, for those of you out there who don't know, I lost one of my closest friends. I had to go out to New Jersey on an emergency last week, so I do apologize for canceling the interviews on Thursday. We tried to scramble to get some of them done. Don DeBar was able to do a couple interviews. Matt was able to do one interview, but we will be picking back up on a regular schedule. But in between my travels to New Jersey and back to Florida, I actually went to Seattle to be with our good friend Shanda Masta. So that happened the other day. I just realized that I'm uneven. I got to straighten myself out. Fam, I saw the Lenin statue in Fremont, I believe it was. You'd be so proud of me. I didn't get the Russian pierogies, but I saw the bullshit they wrote about Lenin being more of like a hero than Stalin. They kind of were anti-Stalin on the message. But that's something I think you encounter all the time, don't you, fam?
Yeah. I mean, Lenin has the mausoleum in Moscow, whereas Stalin doesn't have that. Mainly because Stalin was from Georgia and Lenin was actually from Russia. So there was always a little bit of, they didn't have the same necessarily love for him at this point in history right now, even in Moscow. But people who know what Stalin did in terms of the metro do love him because that metro there is like insane.
Fee, you there?
Yeah. I think we lost you, Pasta. I think you're the one that dropped out for a second.
Fee, you were frozen.
No, it was you, Pasta.
It was you. Yeah. Because I'm like, I
was hold on a second. Let me fix this again. I'm so sorry.
So y'all, while Pasta gets himself settled, I don't think he's had enough coffee today. Yeah, you know what? I actually got to talk to Shanda. Pasta gave me a phone call, so it was really nice seeing her. If everybody wants to wish her, the best, she's going through it right now, and it's a tough battle she's fighting, but we all love her, and she's definitely fam. And if you have any chance to go and support her, please do, because as you know, the healthcare system in the United States is a sick care system. Doctors don't really know how to solve the issue of cancer. And, there's a lot that we still need to talk about that. And I've been going through it with one of my family members as well. And so for me, it's deeply personal that we support somebody like Shanda, who has supported pretty much everybody, in the independent media world. And now it's our time to give back to Shanda. So if you can, please take a look at our GoFundMe and donate. If you can put it in the chat, Jayme, that would be great. And, I got the chance to talk to her. She was so happy that you were there, fam. She was so happy.
Oh, I know. And, man, I'm so touched, and it was so great to see her. It was great to see Oz in person. It was great to see Amber King in person. Linda, who's done some work with us. Linda, who did the whatchamacallit, fam, the old Convo Couch Substack newsletter. And that was also tied to when I did AM Wake Up and trying to get people there. So that's what Linda did some work with us on that. So it was great to see the whole Roar Media team together. We were there all together in the room with her at one spot, just trying to lift her spirits. She had taken some medicine, just finished up the clinical trials, fam. They've just recently FDA approved. It's at that point. She was supposed to take 10 milligrams of it. They gave her a starter 1 milligram, and things were so bad. That's when I got a call from Oz, actually on Saturday, when I went to the Diane Sayre, in between my friends, at the hospital and his passing and the funeral and all those arrangements. I went to Diane Sayre's announcement that she'll be running for president. Garland Nixon was there. Scott Ritter was there. Jose Vega was there. A couple other people. Our boy Crab was there. Loved to see him. He came over from Jersey. But I got a call from Oz, and it said, hey, man, it's not good. I called Amber. Amber's like, yeah, it's not good. She took 1 milligram of the 10 milligram medicine, and she had a bad reaction. They almost thought she was going to have a stroke. I got on a plane the very next day, Sunday morning, from Newark, New Jersey. Literally, instead of going back into New Jersey where my friends were and staying with them over there, my family and friends, I stayed at the Newark airport where Garland Nixon was actually staying for the Caleb Maupin event that Don DeBar happened to be with there. And I was happened to be in the building at the same time with Caleb and didn't get to say hi because I was on a 6 o'clock flight out on Sunday to go see her and spent a couple of days with her. And she's going to need a lot of help moving forward. She said she was inspired when she saw a lot of us and the messages and Oz and me to give this another shot and see what she can do. And she's got and it's crazy, fam, when we start talking about cancer and when it gets to a certain point, I mean, Shanda's literally fighting to stay alive 4 or 5 more years. If you can think about that in your mind, you know what I'm saying? What that must be like. She wants to see her granddaughter graduate high school. So she has a battle in front of her. So even though she survived throughout the night, she won that battle. There's a big war in front of her. But, her situation is a little bit different than some of the other people out there, fam, with these turbo cancers. And a lot of people, I think Matt, when he talked to Brooke Jackson the other day on our show, they started talking about it. We're not even having conversations on why there are so many of these cancers that are getting out of hand, turbo cancers, they're among us. We're not even
why.
Conversations about the vaccine and what it could have possibly led to. And that's a very scary situation. The fact that we can't even talk about it, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not, there might be people out there full blown, these turbo cancers are due to the vaccine. That's what they're saying. But we're not even allowed to have a conversation about it. And Donald Trump and RFK gave Pfizer a new contract moving forward. That's not what they were supposed to be in there. So even though you get these little dinky victories, like they're taking away certain, vaccine schedules, something from the vaccine schedule for children, taking away 4 of them, right? You still have a laundry list of them there, and they've gotten new contracts. And that's another thing, fam. There are states out there like Washington, and Amber King has been part of the whole medical freedom movement out there. They don't even want to go along with what the CDC is saying. They want to make their own, analysis and keep the vaccine schedule the way it is. So, I mean, there's so much going on in that world that we're not even talking about. We're not even dipping into. There's a lot of things that we did a lot of work on this on the front end, ladies and gentlemen. All our videos were on Rockfin, talking about this vaccine, talking about COVID, talking about everything that's out there. And I think a lot of that needs to be revisited because it's just being forgotten. They're still running their ads. All the big pharma companies, Pfizer owns the NFL everywhere in the end zone and in the helmets, wherever the case may be. And by the way, one football player wears "Stop the Genocide" on his eyes, and he gets fined almost $16,000. One guy does that, but you can promote all the other stuff. We're in a twisted world, fam. There's a lot in front of us. So my advice to everybody out there is put your fucking seatbelt on because it's gonna get hairier in every single phase, even when it comes to this ICE shit, fam. Because this is not about getting rid of immigrants. This is not getting rid of the most harmful people out there, like they say, right? This is about creating a security state that cannot be touched. Gestapos that can run around and shut down any decision. It's about getting it on us, on we the people, the American citizens. They want to clamp down on them, so they're using all this rhetoric about the immigrants to go and infringe on your civil liberties. It's not even coming, fam. It's here.
Yeah, so let's get to it. We've been talking about that this would happen before it happened. I mean, we knew this was coming. And if you were paying attention, you also knew that this was coming. You knew that it was an excuse to bring in more surveillance, more control on all Americans. It's the same technology that they're using on these detention centers that they're now using on everybody else. And that was always going to be the plan. There was never a plan to say, oh, no, we're going to make sure we only use this against the immigrants crossing the border illegally. We're not going to use this on our civilians. That was never put up for discussion. That was never the intent. The intent was, of course, to weaponize this, just like they weaponized the drug trafficking cartel excuse for Venezuela and then admitted, oh, no, we're not going to actually, we're not going to show evidence of that because there is no evidence of that. Now they have Maduro and his wife in prison, essentially. Waiting trial for something that they've themselves admitted isn't really the thing, right? We know what this is about. And the same way, of course, the issue about the drug trafficking, the cartels coming in, It's not about that. And so now people are suddenly realizing it a little too late and seeing, what's happened since ICE literally shot a woman in the face. And of course you're going to have, and Pasta and I had this discussion earlier, of course you're going to have people defending it. You're going to have the same type of idiots saying, okay, no, but she shouldn't have been an activist. Okay. Like, if you can't be an activist without getting shot in the face, I mean, you can be an activist for anything. You could be, a MAGA activist. You could be whatever activist. Like, that's part of the Constitution, of the United States. So that doesn't mean you should get shot in the face 3 times. She shouldn't have been provoking the officers. But again, like, provoking, what does that mean? Does that mean even if that's the case, does that mean you should be shot in the face 3 times? Even if you are a criminal that has a gun, which she didn't, should you be shot in the face? I thought we liked law and order. I thought we liked due process. There is no due process.
The Constitution.
There is no Constitution. It went out the window. Exactly what I was going to say. It went out the window. So a lot of the people defending this will find a way to defend this, even if somebody gets shot point blank in the face in front of them. It doesn't matter. There will always be those people. But if you're actually honest with yourself and you actually analyze this from a logical way, I'm not even asking you to be outraged with the emotional aspect of it, right? I mean, you as a human being, of course, but at the same time, if you put all of that aside, right, and you're not saying, oh, but she was a woke lesbian. Okay, put all that aside. Let's say you put all that aside. You're looking at a situation where this was absolutely over the top force against an individual that was already leaving, and it's not justified. And we can analyze this to no end, and there's still going to be people that support it. So, Pasta, I don't know if you want to say anything.
There's a few things I want to say to him. Obviously, we could talk about it as we get into it. You know what I'm saying? That I just really quickly. Fam, you go, we knew this would happen. Yeah, we did. But there are people, and once again, I don't want to say that I'm eating crow, but I am eating a little David Crow. I'm eating a little crow because I did think there was more people out there that would be pushing back of what's going on, not making excuses. You said there were people out there who make excuses no matter what. The team sports mentality is so strong. It's something I talked about with Mark Sloboda, which, by the way, we'll be playing the interview on Wednesday with Mark Sloboda. But fam, I don't get this whole, it's okay to break the law to uphold the law. I thought conservatives were more principled than that. I thought they'd be more about, the Constitution as far as due process is concerned. Cops having to identify themselves. I mean, these are like Gestapos that are going around. It's scary. And to see people go, oh my God, no, it is, she shouldn't have been obstructing. It says, plain and simple. This is a law, and we're supposed to be a land of laws. Police officers are not allowed to use deadly force when someone is fleeing. I mean, it's plain and simple. No, he wasn't once again in danger. And this whole thought process, conservatives, populists, right, people out there, some of the shit you're saying, right, the confirmation bias you are spewing is almost, I almost want to call you fucktards, right? Because you're that fucking stupid that you actually believe that this is okay, that this couldn't lead to worse shit, allowing people to break the law to uphold the law. I mean, wake the fuck up over here. This isn't about immigrants. It's about you. Because once they get it in black and white and they're allowed to do this and they're not held accountable to break the law just because they're doing it for your safety, right? To protect you from the illegal immigrant, they're going to turn around and use it on you. Haven't they proved this over and over again? Fucktards, wake up already. It's not okay to break the law to uphold the law. Let's get into it. Christy Nome, the fucktard number 1. Excuse my French for cursing so much. Am I frozen again, or is that just Jayme? What do we got? Play something.
Yeah, you can play just Christy Nome, but I
did want us to open up the show playing Donald Trump getting booed, because that's where we're at now. That's what's happening. We are getting some people waking up. He got booed like crazy. Look really quickly.
Is there some context? Like, where is he right now?
He's at a public event, a game or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So he used to go to a lot of these events, an MMA event, fam, a football game, and the people would be cheering him on. But it's starting to swing the other way now. That's good enough.
Yeah.
It
So
didn't play as well on. Yeah. Good.
I just want to say something that I said on Drive Time. We discussed this on I took over for Pasta on Drive Time
She
last
fucking
Wednesday.
played it last Wednesday, guys. Go onto the archives. And listen to
Pasta just tells
play
me to take over. I have no idea how this show is functioning, but Reggie did an amazing job. So it's on
a
Pacifica
radio
Radio.
show in which I knew Fam would kill it. I said, read 3 topics. It's all about your conversation with the people. And Fam just slayed it. So she, she's being a little humble, but I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, you've been doing this for so long. I knew you would slay it. You slayed it. Right now they should be calling me and say, Pasta, we're going to go with Fiorella, not you. But since she's a Russian agent, they're not going to let her do it, right? So.
Fam, so what I wanted to say about this was that Reggie brought up that, he was a little bit annoyed because he was like, listen, this has been happening for a long time with, poor people, Black people, minorities, all the time. This has been happening a long time. And it took for this woman, who's a white woman, to get shot for people to get it. And I'm like, yeah, it's unfortunate that it took that long. However, for me, I think this is a turning point for a lot of people where they finally get it. And I'm not surprised because in the US, it takes us a minute to get it because we're so propagandized, right? And I'm not trying to just diss on people. I'm just saying the propaganda is strong. And I said this on air, you go to any other country, you talk to people about their politics, they know more about their politics in every other country that I've pretty much been to. The United States, we're completely clueless. We know more about entertainment than politics. So, and that's the way it's set up. And so for me, I actually, unfortunately, through this event, I have seen a turning point in terms of how people who once liked Trump are viewing him. And it's not just, it started with the Venezuela stuff too, because he got some Venezuelan opposition against him. He's had some Latinos who are for Trump start being pushed away from him because he's been so aggressive on this, or at least that's the perception we're getting. Trump's the guy to, push on immigration and take it to the next level. What he has been doing with ICE has pushed a lot of people who have supported him away, people who were genuinely supporting him because they thought he was going to attack the surveillance state. They thought he was going to go after the deep state, even though he really didn't this last administration, but whatever. They thought maybe he was going to actually do something this time. And they're disappointed again. So now it's the second time they're disappointed. And now they're seeing, agents who are not police officers technically. They get less training. And we talked about this with one listener who called in. They get 49 days of training or something ridiculous like that. So you're talking about an almost vigilante type of force because within ICE, there a lot of them don't have ID badges. They don't have their masks. They're pretty much Antifa on the other end, right? What people look at as Antifa vigilante force. Well, what is ICE then? They can just go in, put people in trucks and carry them out. Now they're attacking American citizens, and she's not the first one. They've literally pummeled to the ground several U.S. citizens before knowing that they were U.S. citizens. They've attacked people with legitimate visas and incarcerated them as well. So this has been escalating, and it's just hit that point where now there's a dead woman that was a white U.S. citizen. And now, of course, this is going to affect people in a different way because once you cross that line that they thought they had, now it's oh, well, it's a free-for-all. So yeah, you're right, Friendly Brilliant. This has been happening. But people are just waking up because now they see themselves in a possible victim. Whereas before, they couldn't put themselves in those shoes.
Yeah. Well,
so I think it's a turning point.
That really point real quick, I would probably have pushed back. In fact, this Wednesday, I'll push back on Reggie about that because I think that attitude sometimes is man, it's been happening to Black people for so long. Now it happens to white people. It needed to happen for you to wake up. Well, I think that's a small group of people who are waking up to that and stuff like that. But the crimes committed against society on the globe, whether it be killing in other countries, Black, brown people, white people in Russia, Ukraine area and stuff like that, they are committed by the ruling class. It's not the every average day white person. As duped and as stupid as the majority of them might be, they're still not the ones committing the crime. The security state and the the military industrial complex and the security state, they're all tied together, right? The policing has now come home. That they're doing this at the behest of the oligarchs, of the ruling class. It's always been done by them. That's why we can't get that frustrated just because now some people are waking up to it. No, there's a lot of us who've been waking up to it and been woken up to it a long time ago and understand what's going on. So it's really hard for me to get upset at those people who just woke up to what's going on simply because it was a white woman this time. You know what I'm saying? It's been going on to minorities all the time. I mean, you cannot deny the fact, and this is an argument I have, Black people in this country make up less than 20% of the population, but the men's prison population for Black people is over 45%. That is systemic racism as a whole. You cannot deny it. It is in our face. We need to fix that, right? But once again, we got to be focused on who is committing these crimes against humanity, against the people. And it's the same people that's been doing it for so long with the puppet strings. It's the ruling class. So I say, yes, if whoever's waking up to it for whatever reason, let's be happy. Let's bring them together. Today's Martin Luther King Day, right? We got to talk about the day that his most effective movement, in which was the movement that caused the deep state to say we got to get rid of him, was the Poor People's Campaign. Coming together as a whole. It's the 1% versus the 99%. We mustn't lose focus of that. And I think that's
we shouldn't. Yeah. We shouldn't. But people have the right to be upset. I understand. I said that. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. And ultimately I agree with you. I think this is actually, unfortunately, it cost this woman's life. But I think this is actually going to be a good thing for people to understand finally. And I'll throw you another one. The people outside of the United States, in the Middle East, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, the people in these countries, Iran, who are watching this happen, they're like, oh, all right. And what? Look what you do to us. You drop bombs. Yeah. Finally, you get a taste of your own medicine. Good. That's what a lot of people are saying. And I'm not mad about it because I understand that sentiment. Yeah. I understand. They're saying you have to go through it. You haven't even begun to go through what we've been through. And so that's another layer that we need to understand because we're pissing everybody off now. I mean, everybody, there are very few people are, and they know, they know. And I'll tell you about a conversation I had with a taxi driver here not so long ago later on, because it's a very important conversation. And I think more and more people in the world are realizing, the game that's being played. And I do see a positivity in that. So.
Yeah, but the one of the things you also said on Drive Time that really hit home was you talked about, and I'm going to use this term right now because I'm using it a little bit more than I stopped using it and I brought it back, fam. I caved. The Gusanos, the Venezuelan Gusanos, who were like anti-Maduro, anti-Chavistas, that probably had aided the United States in one way or the other as far as their rhetoric, their support for the United States apparatus to go in there. Some of them getting thrown in jail, going, "Whoa, what the fuck? I thought I was on your side." That explains everything right there. It's the 1% versus all of them. They might have you as they did that to the Kurds in the Middle East for so long and then turned their back on them. Remember when Saddam Hussein said, okay, now that we've ended this shit, can I go gas the Kurds? Here's the gas to go gas the Kurds. What do you mean? Some of these Kurds named their children George Bush, W. Bush Jr. and all this stuff because the American forces were helping them fight Saddam. Turned on them in 2 seconds to get everything back under control once they sealed the deal with Saddam after the first Gulf War crisis. That's the United States in a nutshell. They don't care about anybody. That's why I'm interested to also talk to Gerard Michaels with half the shit he was spewing out of his mouth. Now, I appreciate his honesty, but these people are acting like there's going to be a knock on their door. Hey, here's your $600 check from the oil we secured in Venezuela. Thank you for standing by us. We get nothing out of that. Zero, zilch. The same people who are stealing the oil hate you in America. This isn't team sports that we have to take over the resources to fight against China and Russia. No, this is about poor men going to fight rich men's war so they can obtain all the resources and the money, you dummy. It's got nothing to do with fucking geopolitical plays that the United States needs to do this for the benefit of our society so we can stay comfortable, fam. No. Why are we going in the wrong direction? Why can't our generation buy houses? Because they don't give a shit about you. Donald Trump doesn't care about you, you friggin' dummy.
Okay,
Kristi
let's
Noem,
play
ladies and
this.
gentlemen.
Let's play this, and then I'll answer Indy's
All right,
question.
fam. Fired up. Gone a week and gone 8 days. I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh,
Every
God.
single individual has committed a crime, but 70% of them have committed or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries that are here illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
Pause.
It's not 70%.
Fam, jump in there. I know you had something to say because this is all over the TV right now. This is Fox News, CNN. What the State Department and Kristi Noem is saying is that the majority of people they're going after, 70% of them have crimes or suspected of a crime. One of those crimes is being here illegally, which that's a misdemeanor, number one. And number two, they're entitled to their due process to see if they have a right to be here. And most of them have a right, according to international law, charters written by the United States. But I heard you say something, and I know you want to jump in here.
Well, I mean, she's just lying through her teeth. I mean, she doesn't have any evidence to back up what she's saying. Even the anchor here is about to tell her that what she's saying isn't true. And the thing is, like, so conservatives, they love to get caught up in the statistics and the evidence and all of that. And so usually when they're arguing with a liberal, like, you know, it's like the emotional versus the logical, but they're not even being logical at this point because their facts aren't facts. They're just opinions. And it's a narrative that they're pushing in order to justify what's being done. And what people need to understand, whether they're Trump supporters, whether they're leftists, whether they're whoever, you're all Americans and your Constitution is being trampled on. And the surveillance state is literally in full mode acceleration. And we've talked about this. I actually did a show with Beat Bet Media, and we talked about this. Is the United States falling apart? Is the United States an empire in decline? And in a way it is, but in a way it's not the whole of the United States. It's everybody but the elites, but this elite class, because they're not losing money. They're making a ton of money. They've been making so much money from these wars. They've been making a ton of money from these transactions that are happening. It's everybody else that is in decline. It's U.S. society that's in decline, but the people at the top aren't in decline. I disagree with a lot of these people that are on you talking about multipolarity, that the US is dying, the empire is dying. Is it really though? Is it? Because I see them expanding. I see Israel expanding. I see this Pax Judaica expanding. That's what I see happening. I don't see the US elite dying. I see the American people and American society in decline. Yep. Yes. But I don't see the empire.
Since his presidency, the oligarchs have gotten richer, and people are still trying to deny this. They've gotten more and more money, and we've gotten less. Well, people will go, oh, what about he just signed an executive order against BlackRock that they can't? Well, it's too late. They've already grabbed everything and consumed everything, and he knows his executive order is just fucking talk. It's hot air. It's not going to hold up within the courts. He's doing this to dupe you. Meanwhile, even though he says he's putting the handcuffs on BlackRock, who did he go talk to about picking his economic cabinet before he was the president and sworn in? Larry Fink in BlackRock. He's beholden to these people, the Zionists, the 1%. He makes them money. He doesn't help you. And when people are out there going, well, the economy's getting better, where do you judge this? From where? The gas is still up to ridiculous prices. Our food costs in the grocery store, whether you're in LA, whether you're in Florida, whether you're in DC, New Jersey, is ridiculous and through the roof. Where are we getting relief? What is systemically changed? Instead, the peace president has $1 trillion budget for fucking war, and that's where our money is still going and will continue to go. Let's play the rest of this video over here, fam, to boil your blood some more.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
70% of everyone
you guys keep changing your percentage. You pick and choose what numbers you think work, but that is the facts, is that 70% of the people that we have detained have charges against them or have been convicted of charges, and they need to be brought to justice. And we're going to keep doing that no matter how much you guys keep lying and don't tell the public the truth. It absolutely is that these law enforcement officers are out there every day doing the work to protect the American people, and they will keep
Yep.
doing that because they believe in enforcing the law, which is exactly what President Trump has charged them with. Every single individual has.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the narrative they're selling, guys. I mean, so, okay, so enforcing the law, does that mean you detain American citizens and then after the fact say, oops? Or does that mean you detain people with valid visas? Does that mean now you're threatening to revoke the citizenship of people that are against Israel, as Indy has said here, right? What about these people? What about these people? Right? So now because once you start, if it's Israel, then it's going to be, if it's, if you're against the war on Venezuela, or if you're against the U.S. invasion of the next country, Mexico, Colombia, whatever it is, Iran, right? Like you could be subject to complete imprisonment, if not ripping a part of your citizenship. Who knows what's next? Because once you start escalating things like this, then it's like it's a free-for-all, and that's the point, is nobody's safe. You think you're safe right now because it hasn't happened to you, and I think this is why the situation with this woman hit home for a lot of people, because they thought they were safe, and they're not safe. It doesn't matter. It used to be like, you're a white person, you should be good. You're an American citizen, you should be good. Well, no, like, I mean, people have been under attack for a long time. People who have been against the empire have already been attacked for a very long time, but now it's happening more and more. And then you have people like Kristi Noem, who I can't even tell when she has a thought because there's so much Botox in her face that she doesn't show expression. But like, you're so dumb. This is exactly what's wrong with society. She's
man,
I find her so unattractive because she has like no emotion in her face. It's like, but she's just pushing this narrative that is just completely and totally. Everybody sees through it. I think if you're not a sycophant for Trump, right? You see through it. She's not offering any evidence. She's just stating what she was told to state. That's it.
So let's just play the last one, Jayme, really quickly. It's the people in the streets. With Fam and I have had plenty of time in the streets. Fam used to say, to the streets. But this is people in the streets kind of just, we saw them booing Donald Trump. Now we see them going after Kristi Noem. Go ahead, Jayme, play it. Sam, I got a question. Here's my question. Get us out of there. Okay. Here's my question.
That's hilarious.
Why does it take ICE messing up to get bodies in the streets? Do you see anything when people ask me what's upsetting about the protest? I say, well, what's upsetting to me about the protest is that the ICE will screw up. There will be a situation, and we saw the situation with George Floyd, right? That will get bodies in the streets. But what about the other issues? Why aren't bodies in the streets because of the war machine? What's happening in Russia, Ukraine? Why are we ignoring that? Why weren't enough bodies in the streets like this when we
because they're far away, fam.
Because we captured Nicolas Maduro. But give a little insight to that, because that's what upsets to me. I see a lack of consistency, and I understand how racism, right? Because I look at the situation as racism. Racism is bad, but why doesn't militarism get the same type of energy to get people in the streets as this does?
No, because we don't care unless it affects us, right? In the United States. I mean, that's just how things are. We don't really pay attention unless it affects us. So when ICE does that to some American woman in the streets of Minneapolis, then you're going to get a different reaction than, every day seeing children get blown up and burned alive in Gaza. You're going to get a different reaction than the fact that the United States went in and captured a sitting president and his wife and just took them away for the world to see. And, the world continued, because we've already gone through it. And this is another thing I said on Drive Time. We've already reached the pinnacle of inhumanity with Gaza. And it's not over, guys. And it was never a ceasefire. We said this from day one on the show. It's not over. There are still people being killed every single day in Palestine. The desire to turn it into a resort is still on board. There was never any peace for these people. It was never going to stop. But people just wanted to feel good about it. So they believed that, okay, there's a ceasefire and we finally are seeing an end to this. And now we're going to move on to the next thing. And that's just how we function in the United States. So yeah, you're not going to get the same level of outrage.
Fam. I saw PSL people. I saw PSL people in the room cheer it on when there was ceasefire deal when Donald Trump signed the peace deal, because he's the peace president. They applauded loud in the room like something had happened.
Yeah. Of course
they dumb on all sides, ladies and gentlemen. I was like, how can anybody cheer this on? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is, forget about it. And like you said, Jared Kushner still wants to get this done. Where's the last tweet of this section over here, fam? What do you got with this here? This is your boy, Douglas McGregor. Jayme, you putting it up?
Okay, so Douglas McGregor said the Second Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And so people retweeted this, were upset at this, because he said, breaking, anti-ICE protesters seen with semi-automatic weapons in Minneapolis. So what's been happening, guys, and I don't think we put any videos of it, but there's been people rising up, right? There's been people, the Boogaloo Boys, there's been supposed Black Panthers, people who say they're Black Panthers rise up. There's been a lot of activists in the streets protesting what the U.S. is doing. And I'm not even going to say Trump anymore, because we know that Donald Trump is the president, but he's not necessarily the one in charge. We know that. And so we've been seeing, right, what's been going on in the streets. We're seeing things escalate. And one of the things that Jayme mentioned earlier on the show was he heard somebody, I forget who you said, Jayme, call ICE basically martial law, right? Like another excuse for martial law. And, you know, to a degree, I agree with it, because I do think that they're basically imposing whatever rules they decide, trampling on First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Second Amendment. I mean, they're trampling on all of the amendments for those constitutionalists. So where are you? You know, you need to oppose that, because now you're not just getting opposition from people who are the woke left or the radical left. You're going to get opposition from people who are concerned about the surveillance state, who are concerned about their rights being trampled on by this group of vigilantes, because you say you don't like vigilantes. So suddenly now we have vigilantes that are called ICE that are basically doing whatever they want. Is that not then martial law, right? It's not, because martial law in particular is a particular thing, but it is in the context of the fact that it is a law that it's they're imposing a certain version of the law that they want, where you don't get any rights, and it's a free-for-all for them. And any opposition or pushback against them could land you in jail or dead at this point. So that's where we are in the U.S. And what they want, in my opinion, in the U.S. and what they've wanted for a long time is a civil war, right? They want a civil war.
They want it.
It's up to us if they get that or if they get a war against them. And that's what people need to realize.
And what we're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm saying is that they're using these situations to exercise more emergency rights, give themselves a more emergency powers, saying that this is a terrorist, emergency powers. We're allowed to kill them. They're combatants. They don't have any due process. It's enemy combatants. When they exercise more emergency rights, emergency laws, that means less rights for you, right? They can do more. I think what was really telling them that there was ICE pulling over this guy with a friend of his, and this guy was like willing to comply. But, you know, once again, they were just pretty much, they threw the Constitution out the window. They didn't have any accountability. They didn't identify himself. The guy was like, can you pull your mask down? Hey, you identify yourself. I appreciate you not having a mask, but with your glasses on. You know, they want to be able to just search and seize without any particular rights without having to go along with the law. And that's what's going on right now. It might not be martial law, but they've given themselves emergency powers, which provides them more free will to do what they want, less restrictions, which those restrictions are in there for our benefit and our protections, and less accountability at the end of the day. You give them more power, less accountability, and that's what's going on. So it is a form kind of martial law, even though it doesn't have that stamp on it. They're going about it like they are. Let's put a bow on that section, fam. Let's get to the next one, because this other one has been all over the TV screen too as well. And it's embarrassing to see the way, fam, this argument from a lot of the neocons or the people who support the neocons or the pro-imperialists, that if we don't do it, fam, Russia and China will, so we got to get into Greenland. That, I mean, it's to hear that excuse for more militarism when you call yourself the peace president and the followers of the peace president is kind of sad at this point, fam. Like, the justifying it, you know, and you still have idiots out there running around trying to say that China's the big threat in the room right now, that China has more control over our government. And when you ask them about Israel, they kind of just turn a blind eye and ignore it. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, we know that they've bought off our whole government. But your thoughts about what's going on now with Greenland, because it's being justified by a lot of people out there.
It is, and I want to talk about that. But first, I want to just, state a couple of things. So Trump has said he wants to take Greenland, right? And then he said that he wants to impose tariffs on the EU allies who are opposing Trump from taking Greenland, right? And then Keir Starmer from the UK said this was completely wrong, and Macron has said this is unacceptable. And so what's been going on is this happened after Trump announced 10% tariffs on any goods from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and Finland. And he said this is going to come into force next month on February 1st, and then could later go up 25%. We've seen Trump use these tariff threats before with China. We've seen how that turned out. And so they've been pushing this idea of taking Greenland by force. So my issue with this whole thing is I've seen a lot of people, and it's not just the right that I've seen justify this. I've seen a lot of people who call themselves multipolarists, or who are some of the pro-Russian commentators, some of the politicians on Russia's end, some of the politicians all over that like the Trump administration, that are justifying or almost like glorifying this as like a way to get at the EU. And here's the thing: we know the EU, they're annoying. We know the EU is a failed entity. It's completely bankrupt, mainly because of the Ukraine war that the US caused. And this is what I want to get at. The United States is clearly using the EU, has used the EU to basically pin everything on them. And I'm not defending the politics of these EU politicians like Macron or all these morons. I'm not defending NATO. I'm not saying that they're anything good or great has come out of their decisions. But let's be very clear here. Who manipulated and started the war in Ukraine? That was the United States of America. Okay, that was the deep state, the US deep state, coming in 2014 and ousting the legitimate leader of Ukraine. And that is what happened. The EU has just been functioning as a sort of vassal entity for the United States to do that. In fact, if the EU wanted to support Ukraine, they couldn't do it alone. And that's just reality, okay? They couldn't do it alone. So behind all of this focus on the EU as being, a detriment to society, yeah, okay, but who also wants it to be that way? It's the United States, and the United States is putting the Ukraine war in the EU. They're putting it on the UK, and they're also manipulating now this whole scenario to make it look like if you are against imperialism on Greenland, then you must be a supporter of NATO, or you must be a supporter of these dumb EU politicians that have basically squandered their economy and into nothing. But let's not pretend that they're that independent from what the United States has dictated them to be, because that's just not valid. And again, I'm not defending NATO, but I am saying, if you think there's separation really, or that there's, the power vacuum is coming from the United States. They're sucking up all the power, and now they're just throwing it up and saying, oh, well, the EU is useless. So yeah, let's take Greenland.
Can I say this much, ma'am, too, really quickly? It's funny to me because the way they're using this to justify by going after the EU, oh, this is going to be against EU, this is going to be against NATO, and they're using this to justify it. His Greenland thoughts of regime change. Is that regime change? Or conquering or imperialism, whatever. It's the same way they justify the ICE killings and shootings by it's against the radical left. It was a radical left out there. It's the same mechanism. And this mechanism, this tactic is used to squash any individual thinking, independent thinking out there. That's what this is all about. They want to keep you in a constant state of you need to hate your neighbor. That's the problem. The radical left, the racist right, what I'm saying? This is what this is. And, the way his press secretaries, right? What's her name? Levitt. Did you see the question asked by the Irish reporter the other day? And she just went crazy on him and stuff. And her talking points, they're just so she was angry. She's upset. If you think this way, you must be a radical leftist. If you think this way, you don't care about the innocent women and children who have been killed by illegal immigrants. If you think this way, your thought process is wrong and you support Barack Obama and the Democrats. If you think this way, yada, 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 bad, 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 bad. Both sides are doing this. I got to tell you, the whole ICE thing that I didn't say before we ended that, before we got into Greenland, who is as happy as can be about these ICE shootings and the issues with ICE and stuff like that? The establishment Democrats in Congress and Senate, because now they can speak up because they're the do nothing party, right? They do nothing. Their whole fucking shtick is that the Republicans are bad and you need to elect me because they're racist and evil. But now they get to speak forth about what's going on. So now you see the Ayanna Presleys out there and stuff, the Ilhan Omars, the Chuck Schumers. Now you see them speaking up because they have something to speak up against. They love this ICE shit more than anything else. They do, because it gives them a purpose and a reason that they normally don't have other than Republicans bad. And even though it still is Republicans bad, at least they have a reason to speak up and get out in the streets now. You know what I'm saying? They're taking advantage of this situation, and they're ready to come swing around with the handsome Newsom. You got to come back and vote for us again. It reminds me of the days of George W. Bush when they were so bad that we just wanted anybody, hope and change, get the fuck in there. Let's get these psychos out of there. That's what's happening right now. So that's who's more benefiting from this whole situation more than anything. And you see the same type of language with this Greenland situation. So please continue, fam.
No, that's just the name of the game. That's exactly what's going to happen. We're just going to see the push towards the Democrats, and the Democrats will save us from Czar Trump. But the reality is, this is exactly why Trump is there to allow this to happen, and then the next guy will do the next phase. And that's guys. This is and people will still fall for it in the next few years. They're still going to fall for it. And again, we're going back to, is the United States in decline? Is it? Yeah, the society of the United States is. Life in the United States is. You see the decline. Malls are closing down. People, businesses are closing down. The banks are not where they should be. Real estate is not where it should be. Salaries are nothing compared to the amount of taxes and the amount of spending that you have to deal with. Crime and drug use and depression are at an all-time high. The health industry is in chaos. But does that affect a billionaire or multi-millionaire elite class? No, it doesn't. They're making a lot of money. They'll be fine. They have their bank accounts and offshore accounts where they don't have to worry about taxes. They don't have to worry about all the things that the average person worries about. So for me, we're transitioning from a unilateral empire type of world to a multilateral, elite, global, transactional type of world. And you watch, nations will matter less in the coming years because it's going to be about wealth. And the powerful at the top, the elite class, come from multinational all over the world. There's an international race against the people versus the global international elite class. And that's where we're headed. It's going to become less about nation states and more about an international elite class. And more of what's happening in these interactions that we're seeing really indicates that. And this idea about the US going to World War III that people constantly talked about, we're in a way, this is a World War III. Like, in a way, we have already been there. It's just not, the war is against you and me. The war is against us as a whole. It's against the people. And you need to realize that we're at war, right? The United States is at war with Latin America, but more so particularly, they're at war with any resistance-minded type of existence. They and it's not just the United States anymore. You have to include Israel, the Zionism that is embedded in it. You have to include the global elite that is embedded with it, because a lot of people think that we're gearing into a nuclear showdown, and while we've been pretty close to it, right, at any moment because of the nature of things, the reality is the transactions and this climate and economics matters much more to these people than blowing it up and starting over. Sure, there are people that are crazy enough to do it, but I trust me on this. What's been happening are transactions more than anything else. And the people from these that think like this come from all over the world, but especially more so Western, European-ish countries. But you'll have China, you'll have Russia, you'll have elites in Middle East also involved in this. And I think people are going to have a hard time accepting that. They thought the multipolar world was going to bring equity, and it's not. It's not what people think it is. And I don't think BRICS is going to save anything at all. I'm not seeing that happen right now in any way, shape, or form. So,
well, I don't think it was there to replace. I think it was just there to counteract, just to say, okay.
But it's not counteracting.
Not
but
even
it's not. What's it counteracting?
I don't want counteracting is not a good word. It was there to just be another form of banking and liquidity, whatnot, in addition to, not to stop the other one. In other words, everybody still wants to plug into the Western banking system. Even Russia obviously has this, I wouldn't even say it's practical anymore and stuff, but they have this desire to do business with the West. And this is something you've been talking about for quite some time, no matter how many times the United States does what it does and, wants to balkanize Russia. I mean, I don't even understand why there's any conversation what's going on with that Russia-Ukraine situation after, Putin, the assassination on Putin. What more do you want at this point? You know what I'm saying? Like that would be all right, done deal. We're done. Everything's off the table, and I hear there are major strikes getting ready for Kiev, but I don't know. I'm still waiting.
It's not off the table.
Yeah.
Like,
should it not be? I mean, you yourself have said the United States will always try to balkanize Russia. At what point are you going to sit there and go, okay, let's continue to try to do business with them? No. I don't know, but that's,
Yeah, but and you should understand why it's not. It's because we're looking at transactions more than.
You laid it out perfectly over here. This is about the global elite, not nation states fighting. This is about those on top keeping their leverage over those on the bottom, and the nations mean less than the fact that it's the up versus the down, not the Russia versus the United States or the West or the BRICS. It's not, that doesn't matter as much as that those on top want to remain on top and keep those of us on the bottom on the bottom.
Yeah, there's just more players at the table, but the players are still wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So it's.
Yeah. What article is that you got there? Let's throw it up, Jayme. And I see this here, and look, this is the Capitalist on Substack. Trump drops the tariff hammer threat on NATO over Greenland. That's how he's dropping the tariff. We got a president, fam, that doesn't take any more shit. He's going to tariff these bastards, right? If they don't play ball.
So we just went over this. So he's threatening more tariffs. So the next thing that's kind of related to this, right, is the Russia to bomb the UK and Germany thing, which I thought was insane, by the way, to put this out, because I swear,
Go ahead,
I will say this,
Yeah.
like with full security. Russia has zero desire to bomb Germany or the UK. Like they have not only zero desire, they have zero need to do that. So I don't know why this narrative is being pushed out. I do find it weird that they're saying this. And I do wonder what the objective is. Is it to cause confusion and chaos? Is it to, throw things off for a loop? Because Tucker had on this
Scroll that up a little bit, Jayme, so we can see that.
Top Putin aide that was warning that if the Ukraine war continues, Russia will nuke Germany and the UK. Russia has no need to nuke Germany and the UK. They've already won this on the military level. That's just a fact in terms of the state of their troops versus Ukraine's state of troops. If you want to, say one, like they have achieved more of their objectives. They're already continuing this on a military level. I'm not even saying this as like, oh, she's just a pro-Russia. No, I'm literally just stating like the reality is they've already like that's it. Okay. Like there's no way Ukraine.
Questions. I got some questions for you, and you straighten me out, fam. If I need straightening out over here, yes, they have taken a lot on the battlefield as far as when it comes to the Donbass and all these other ethnic-speaking areas. But there's an issue of what to do standing still. I mean, even though they've conquered all these areas, and let's say they get even a bigger of a buffer zone, what are you going to do with Kiev? You have to do something with Kiev, right? Whether you have a regime change forcibly, you cut a deal with Poland, or whatever the case may be, there's still an issue right now. There are Nazis in Kiev, and it would be very hard to take Kiev because it would be guerrilla warfare like crazy, right? So there is a looming issue over there. And I do think a lot of this goes back to what Putin said himself when he goes, listen, when we're fighting the Ukrainians, it's different. They're considered our brothers, and we're being very careful and very tactical about it and taking our time. And I think they're saying that as if Putin and the Russian Federation don't want to have a lot of innocent deaths on their hands. So if they go about it in a slow, methodical manner, they can have less civilian casualties. But then he turned around and said, it's not going to be like that with Europe, right? We're not going to hold back, and if they're prepared, we don't want a war, but if they're prepared to have a war, we'll give it to them, right? So he did say something of that nature, right? So my argument is, the first part is, even though they are obtaining their objectives on the battlefield in Ukraine, isn't there a looming issue with Kiev? Like I've said this to Mark Sloboda before, and I've said this a long time. I don't see this war ending unless Russia takes Ukraine, because even if they were to stop and create a buffer zone, they'll still have Nazis on their border, and they're not going to allow Nazis to live on their border that hate them. So how do you rectify that problem first, fam?
I think we're too focused on the Nazi thing. Like the Nazi thing is important to some people in Russia. It's important to the patriots, the people that are fighting for an ideological cause, that are fighting the actual neo-fascist entities that destroyed and killed, ethnic Russians. Yeah, that's important to them. But for the government as a whole, we're talking about the Kremlin. They have other priorities, and their priorities are to expand their interest and to continue growing and having expanding their economy, expanding their role in the world, in this global world that we're entering, where they've proven themselves to be a military superpower, where they've proven themselves that they have relationships with pretty much everybody all over the world, that they've proven themselves even in Syria now, where they're getting their bases, or they've kept their bases, they're getting bases in Libya. They're expanding their interests with not just Asia, but Southeast Asia, with India. You're seeing Russia grow in that realm. And for them, that's the priority. It's not about the neo-Nazis. There's a difference in again, Russia's not monolithic. You're going to have the military have their perspective. You're going to have the Kremlin have their perspective, and you're going to have the Russian people with various perspectives. This is not just a one thing. And when you talk about Russia, you have to think about those various sectors when you're doing analysis. Otherwise, you're not going to get it correct, because like the Kremlin, what they have been doing in terms of the military and what they've been trying to push is to just complete their objectives and increase their control into the areas that they already had in mind. Now, what happens after that? They don't. It's not an ideological fight to get rid of the Nazis. That's what was sold, I think, to a lot of people.
Putin said that
not the
himself. He wants
reality.
to denazify, Ukraine at one point. So maybe,
but now we're
not
past the point of denazifying Ukraine, because there's not going to be like that. It's almost become irrelevant at this point, because they don't have any power. Ukraine is a proxy. Ukraine is a vassal state. It doesn't have any power. The United States basically controls what's going on in Ukraine, and the EU to a lesser degree. So they know they're fighting. They're not fighting Ukraine. This is why Ukraine hasn't even been in the negotiations, in the conversations that have been happening between Stephen Witkoff and the Kremlin, including Kirill Dmitriev. Where has Ukraine been in these discussions? Nowhere, because they're not relevant. Whatever Ukraine has is going to be under the jurisdiction of U.S. corporations like BlackRock, the United States government, in the military industrial complex of this area. Whatever Ukraine is that. It is no longer any sort of nation state. And that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about transactions, and this war is about transactions. The entire time last year, they've been talking about the Arctic. Russia and the United States have been talking about economic cooperation in the Arctic, economic cooperation in the Donbass. There are vast mineral deposits there that are of interest both to the United States and to Russia. And they want to open up the markets. There are now new, and I think I have it in this section, business relationships that are forming. I may not put it in there, that are coming, right? And I said, yes, it's the second tweet. I said, more proof Russia-Ukraine war will end this year. Everybody's telling you that that's not going to happen, that Russia-Ukraine war isn't going to end. I'm telling you the opposite. Why am I telling you the opposite? Because I'm looking at this from a transactional end. Russia, the Kremlin, they want to end this war so bad, not because they necessarily have, they can't beat Ukraine, but more so because they actually want to open up the economic sphere. They are looking at opening up diplomatic relations with the United States. They are looking at it that way. And if you look at the way the world is working now, next topic, Venezuela, you will see that that's how things are functioning from now on. So Mercedes-Benz has registered its trademark in Russia. The company can now manufacture and sell cars in the country. This was January 12th. Okay, so this is happening. At the same time, McDonald's has been in talks of returning to Russia. Other businesses have been in talks of returning to Russia. Some Russian businesses are in talks of returning to the United States. I'm looking at that because that tells me, how are you going to have that happen if the United States and Russia are at war? And meaning if the United States and the Ukraine war continue. The only way that could happen is if you have the Ukraine war pushed on the EU. We very well know that that could be a possibility, but the EU can't handle it on its own. They're not, everything that the EU does, the United States knows about. So that would be an excuse, right? That would be the excuse. But what I'm seeing from, for example, Kirill Dmitriev and others that are posting on X, they're blaming the EU. They're like, you know, Russia. They're making fun of Keir Starmer. They're making fun of all the EU diplomats and politicos. Like they're basically throwing it at them, saying they're the ones that are opposed to this. But the reality is the same way with Greenland. The United States is like, they're the ones who started this. So really, if Russia's going to negotiate with someone, it's going to be with the United States. It's not going to be with Ukraine. It's not going to be with the EU. And ultimately, what that's going to say is they'll have to pause. NATO will have to pause whatever they're doing. And then we also saw the recent comments by the German guy. I'm pulling it up. The next one, I didn't put it in here, but it was like a German guy saying that, you know, Russia is part of Europe, right? He's saying like Russia is a part of Europe, always has been. And if you look at the rhetoric by Kirill Dmitriev, he says the leftist UK government is anti-UK, anti-Trump, anti-dialogue, anti-peace, and anti-Western civilization. And this is what I'm talking about.
The leftist UK government.
The UK has broken with France and Italy over whether Europe should reopen direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper warning that Moscow has shown no credible interest in peace. So Kirill Dmitriev is basically saying this is the left, like the left in the UK, the left. He's going along with the Trump rhetoric, right? So what we're seeing here is something that's possible, is this kind of alienation and putting it on the EU and the left UK and NATO, that this war is going to be their war now. It's not the US war. The US wants to make talks with Russia. They want to open up dialogue. They want to open up economic partnerships. And if this guy who is at the front of it all is telling you this, that's because that's literally what's happening. So yeah, I'm actually, I'm going to stand by that I do think we are going to see, at the very least, an opening up between the United States and Russia, 100%.
There's no bet on Kalshi yet, fam. That was the website you were asking about, Kalshi. Remember that? There's no bet on Kalshi right now about whether it will end this year. I looked on ChatGPT to see if there was any odds. There's a poll conducted by Russian Public Opinion Research Center in December 2025 found that 55% of Russians believe the war will end in 2026. So if you're asking Russians, 55% of them say that they think it's going to end this year. You won't get good odds. You would have got better odds last year, but it didn't happen last year. I think it was like 19% of the people said that. So we can't find a bet on Kalshi, but I'll keep my eyes open, fam. And if it's there is one that's there, I'll throw down some Skadol on it ending this year by the words coming out of Fiorella Isabel's mindset. So we'll keep an eye on it. Remember, you asked what the website was? It's Kalshi.
Kalshi.
Kalshi. And they have a bunch of odds up there for who's going to be the next president and whatnot. I think the Democrats' favorite is once again Gavin Newsom this time, not what's her name, Kamala Harris.
Kamala?
Even though I know, it's a big state. Russia's a big country. The other one's a small country. She's still like the second choice, right? I mean, the United States is just terrible. I know you. It's just terrible with this stuff. But we'll keep an eye. Kalshi, Kalshi. That's the one.
Y'all. So the other day there was this warning issued by the FAA. They issued a 60-day flight warning for airspace over Mexico, Central America, and parts of South America, including Ecuador, Colombia, and the Eastern Pacific. And they said that there was a risk of military activity and GPS interference. So that's a 60-day warning that was, I think, on January 16th. So we have about 2 months, right, effectively, like March, mid-March, for this warning to expire. Trump has also said that there could be potential strikes in Mexico, Colombia, so Latin America is obviously on the radar, right? And it's interesting that the Federal Aviation Administration issued this, and I've been seeing a lot of planes fly through here as well. Like there's been a lot of activity, military planes. So the reason I'm pointing that out is because this thing with Venezuela isn't over. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what is going on in Venezuela because they're not understanding. From Venezuela's point of view, their number one thing that the government officials have been saying is that they want to get Maduro back. They want Maduro and Celia Flores, his wife, back into the country, and they're going to do everything they can to get them back. Now, from the perspective of a lot of people who are, analyzing this, or who journalists who are looking at this, they're looking at this like, wait a minute, what happened here? Because why are you suddenly working out deals with the United States? And what did you give in order to work out these deals? I understand both perspectives. I understand where they're coming from. However, what I do wish people would stop doing is literally make things up or push narratives without any proof, because on either end, I think, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So let's just go through this, fam. Anything to say before we begin on what?
Some questions I would like to just point out beforehand, and as they listen to your lesson, they can maybe get a position on it or not. I still think there's a lot of people who are questioning whether or not the Venezuelan government, at what degree, had something to do with giving over Nicolas Maduro. And my question to you is also, could he have been part of that whole deal? And I think everybody's kind of curious about where the new government will be going. As you talk about Delcy in this whole situation, she is a Chavista. Donald Trump keeps talking as if it's a done deal that they have the oil. If the Chavistas are still in government, you know, how can they have the oil? I mean, what's in the future? What lies in the future? So I think those are just a few questions that maybe throughout the whole process you can address and answer, fam, because I think a lot of people are still questioning that. The government portraying Maduro, that's a big question, right? That's still, people are saying at what level, at some level, what's going on? So that's something I want you to keep in mind, because I keep hearing different opinions about this from people all over different parts of the political spectrum.
Yeah, it's coming from very specific parts of the political spectrum, I'll say. But yeah, let's just get started here with this first video of Donald Trump. So Donald Trump did have a conversation with Venezuelan acting president Delcy Rodriguez. He praised her and actually said that they are going to receive the 50 million barrels of oil from Venezuela. And he also stated that Marco Rubio was involved, and you know, they're feeling good about it. So this is what he said a few days ago. Let's hear what he said.
And we'll see how it all works out. I think something will work out. Yeah.
Venezuela, Cabello, the de facto #2 in Venezuela right now, he seemed pretty reluctant to work with the U.S. And obviously he's
they just gave us 50 million barrels of oil.
The #2, the Venezuela security.
I don't know. I know the #1. We just had a great conversation today, and she's a terrific person. I mean, she's somebody that we've worked with very well. Marco Rubio is dealing with her. I dealt with her this morning. We had a long call. We discussed a lot of things, and I think we're getting along very well with Venezuela. Yeah. And we'll see how it all works out.
Okay.
I think something will work.
Fam, what's your take on that? What, you know, this is Donald Trump praising, I just want to remind everybody, this is Donald Trump praising a Chavista.
Yeah.
This is Donald Trump praising a radical Chavista, daughter of, you know, of revolutionaries. This is Donald Trump knowingly, like, saying, you know, she's great. She's a Chavista. What's going on here? Why would Donald Trump do that? Is he being serious? What's going on? You know, the United States never does anything without having, you know, an alternative motive.
Well, he's not just saying that she's, you know, a Chavista. He's saying that she's a compliant Chavista, right? Like she might be a Chavista, and people, even if they learn her history, they're going to still say, well, no, Donald Trump now has the oil. They got the 50 barrels there. We needed this oil. It was much desperately needed. Now it's going to be good for the people of Venezuela. So it doesn't make a difference what party she is with in Venezuela. I think the fact that he is bragging that she is compliant, that's what he's going with, right? And he's still trying to, you know, kind of get this out, this kind of from the periphery, like, hey, you know, we might have got Maduro because he's a wanted prisoner, you know, he's a wanted criminal, so we had the right to get him. He's been indicted by the United States. But at the end of the day, Venezuela is going to choose what they want to choose, right? We're just going to make sure it's a good person and not a socialist dictator, you know, which is the code for them stepping in whenever they want. So I think he's trying to sell the point that, you know, what they did was a positive thing by removing Nicolas Maduro, and now they're reaping the benefits. They've gotten the oil. Here we go. Look, finally, we have a president that has the guts like Donald Trump to do what other presidents said they would do, but he actually did. So people in Venezuela are crying because they're happy for their freedom, and now we are reaping the benefits. So he's trying to sell that, once again, that bag of shit, but tell you it's roses.
Yeah, so here's the thing. There's two ways of looking at this. There's a way of that, and there's also the way of looking at Venezuela, like actually having done a brilliant move by basically, yes, cooperating with the United States, which for the entirety of Venezuela's history, they have cooperated with the United States when it came to oil. Venezuela is one of the only countries, for example, that really is so close to the United States in terms of even culture. For example, baseball, like Puerto Rico, like the Dominican Republic, they have that Caribbean spin on them, where they pay a lot of attention to like certain American things, like even something as like, simple as like baseball. They've always had this type of, even before Maduro's time, there have been these relationships in terms of the oil between the United States and Venezuela. So this is not new. What is interesting is that after Nicolas Maduro was kidnapped, right, they threw him in jail, that he didn't go with Maria Corina Machado. And one of the reasons that's interesting to a lot of people is because they don't know about the Venezuelan opposition and how disenchanted they were with Maria Corina Machado. She's pushed away a lot of the Venezuelan elite because, as I've been saying for months now, a lot of them started going back to Venezuela because they actually were able to figure something out with Maduro. And Maduro opened up conversations and dialogue months and months ago with the opposition. And a lot of people were saying, oh, why was that done? What's going on here? Well, that was done months ago. They opened up the conversation. They were able to work some things out and bring certain businesses into Venezuela that the business elite wanted. When Maria Corina Machado went in and tried to do this shtick, it turned a lot of people off because it actually affected their businesses and it made it worse for them. So she managed to piss off not just the Chavistas, but also members of her own elite. And these members that she pissed off turned against her. So she's become a hugely unpopular figure in Venezuela. The only time you see her being popular is in the propaganda from Miami and in that area. But outside of that, she really has no popularity, very much like Juan Guaido. She's nobody that people actually want inside of Venezuela.
She gave the Zionists want her, and she gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. That's now he could put her in charge.
But he won't, because at least right now, because he understood that she's hugely unpopular. And the thing is, from Venezuela's end, what some of the high level diplomats have been saying is that from Venezuela's end, it's almost like they're forcing the Trump administration to accept a Chavista leader because they don't have a choice. Because if they are to go and promote somebody like Corina Machado, it's actually going to be even worse for the intelligence apparatus. So in a way, if you're looking at that through that lens, it is an upper hand that Venezuela has shown that, okay, yeah, we'll work with you, but we're going to keep Chavismo in power, and you're going to have to work with the Chavistas, whether you like it or not. And in a way, you can view that as on that level. Or you can view it on as there was something that was said to Delcy Rodriguez that she agreed to, and that's why the United States is keeping her there for now, right? So those are the two things to look at. Now, the next video I do want to show is this one here. And this is kind of going along the same lines. Why align with Delcy Rodriguez and not with Machado? Okay, so let's hear it from Trump as to his answer on why.
Why align with Delcy Rodriguez and the remnants of the Maduro regime and not with Machado, who has the support of the Venezuelan people?
Well, if you ever remember a place called Iraq where everybody was fired, every single person, the police, the generals, everybody was fired, and they ended up being ISIS. Instead of just getting down to business, they ended up being ISIS. So I remember that. But I'll tell you, I had a great meeting yesterday by a person who I have a lot of respect for. And she has respect, obviously, for me and our country. And she gave me her Nobel Prize. But I'll tell you what, I got to know her. I never met her before. And I was very, very impressed. She's this is a fine woman.
Why align with Delcy Rodriguez?
I mean, he just is all over the place. Does the guy make any sense whatsoever? You ask him one question, he answers it different.
But what he said was really interesting about Iraq, right? In comparing Venezuela to Iraq, saying, it turned to be ISIS, because ISIS is, that's the U.S. creation. Really, the United States pushed the formation of ISIS. So, for him to say that, it's almost like he's saying, we don't want to make things worse. And I met with Maria Corina Machado, and she's, he didn't even remember her name or couldn't say it. She's wonderful.
She's a fine woman, fam. Fine woman.
But he's not going with her, and I find that interesting. And I've never seen this before. You know, I'm not one to believe that you can negotiate with the United States as a country like Venezuela or any country that's been under the boots of the empire and come out on top, because usually they always betray you. They have a card they pull up their sleeve. The thing is with Venezuela, though, very much like Nicaragua, and I've said this before, the Chavista belief is more than just like, it's not just a political party. Okay, it's not even just an ideology. It is like a cultural, historical, you know, ancestral almost thing. Like this is now generational. This is very resistance minded, very much like what we saw in Palestine, what we've seen in Yemen with Ansarallah. This is very much that mentality of like, we're going to fight for our country and our sovereignty no matter what happens. And that's the people of Venezuela, like whether or not it's Maduro or Delcy or somebody else. And it almost seems to me like the US thought that they can, or still thinks that they can manipulate things in spite of the fact that Maduro, with Maduro being gone, like they think like, you know, they can. And I think that they're realizing like they're going to have to work with the Chavistas somehow while they get their manipulations in order. And I think that's what's happening. I don't even think they know what the next move is, to be honest, because I don't think they've dealt with an entity like Venezuela yet, like not in this way. So I'm going to continue because there's more to this. So this is Venezuela on January 13th. This is Caracas. Okay, so there's a giant mobilization of truckers on the 13th of January in the Bolivar Avenida in Caracas. Okay, and they demand the release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Congresswoman Celia Flores, with the presence of Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, who is the son of the president. So look, these are real photos, right? This is an AI. These are real photos of people on the streets of Caracas demanding the return of Nicolas Maduro, which I've been told is like the number one thing they want right now, is that they want those two to return to Venezuela. And everything that they're doing accordingly, allegedly, from the Venezuelan government is a plan that Nicolas Maduro had laid out before he was taken. He had said that there's a plan. The Delcy Rodriguez has even said that there's the plan in place. His son has said this. They're just following along with the plan would be if Maduro was ever to be gone. And that's what they're doing. A lot of the interactions that Delcy's having with the US, Maduro had long been propositioning. He long said, we want to talk to the United States. We want to open up relationships with the United States, blah, 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 blah. This has been ongoing. Now, I want to address some of the questions Pasta asked, especially after this one. So the CIA met with Delcy Rodriguez. Okay, and this is what got a lot of people talking.
Yes.
So this is it. Okay. So this person posted, right? They posted this, that the history of Chavismo ends with Delcy taking orders from the CIA is not only comical, it is healing. Let the whole country see it. Let the entire continent see it. That is Chavismo, a gang of criminals who will grovel before whoever takes it, as long as they can keep power. So this is obviously one person's opinion. I don't necessarily share. I don't share the opinion of this person, but this is a photo of the director of the CIA meeting with Delcy Rodriguez in Caracas. And, you know, there's smiles, there's ha ha ha, there's other photos where they're more smiley at each other. And people, including some Venezuelans that are, you know, pro, like, you know, Chavistas.
Opposition?
No, anti-opposition. There's some people getting upset at this, saying, why are you laughing and smiling with the guy of the CIA? Now, I want to pull up the next picture because this picture is fake. And this is what you have to watch out with online, right? this is a fake AI picture that she's putting something on the CIA guy, like that. None of this happened. This is a fake photo. So if you're sharing that, know that it's a fake photo.
Yeah.
Okay, because that didn't happen. What happened was the other photo where they did meet and they
shook
had
hands. No big deal.
and they shook hands. Okay, so for me, when I look at this, like on an emotional level, I'm like, why the hell would you even, like, why are you having conversations with the CIA, right? Why what's going on here? What do you guys have to talk about? They literally kidnapped Maduro, and they know this, right? They know they kidnapped Maduro and his wife, and they're in prison. And so what I answer to that is they want him back. They're gonna talk to these people in a way to try to get them back. They want their leader back. They want Chavistas to stay in power, and they're willing to have discussions to allow that to happen. Now, my pushback to myself when I say that is, when has the CIA ever given a fair shot at anybody who's had discussions with them, especially if they've kidnapped your president? When have we ever seen this happen? When have we ever seen this lead to a good outcome? Never. Never in the history of anywhere. Will Venezuela be the first one to do it? I mean, I don't have hope. I mean, I realistically, I don't think it's possible. It's not because I don't think it's possible to defeat them. It's because I don't think it's possible to defeat them under their terms. And unless you're setting the terms, and if Caracas is setting the terms, man, that would be great. I just have a hard time seeing how they would be setting the terms when the president is kidnapped. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of both minds on this. Like, I support the Venezuelan people and what they're saying. I stand by, what the information that several high-level members and officials are giving. I believe that they're working in the best interest of trying to get Maduro back, and I think that shows. I do think it's an interesting mechanism that the Chavistas are still in power, and that they're trying to figure it out. But knowing the United States as an American, right? Knowing the intelligence apparatus, knowing how they work, you would be an absolute idiot to buy what they're selling and not have any sort of backing or plan or anything like that to protect yourself. And you would be very naive to think that there's not any concessions that are going to have to be given or have already been given, right? I just don't buy like that. There isn't. And they also haven't talked about the potential mid-level betrayal that has been admitted by some officials against Maduro. I don't think it was, for example, the Chavistas or Venezuela as a whole. And if you just say, oh, Venezuela betrayed Maduro, who in Venezuela? Again, it's not a monolith. You have different layers of government. You have different people. Who are you talking about? If you're just giving an analysis saying Venezuela betrayed Maduro, like, who are you talking about? If you don't know, then you shouldn't be making that assertion, number one. Number two, a lot of these assertions are weirdly coming from Russian diplomats, Russian politicians, and Russian influencers, journalists, analysts. And I find that interesting because of the fact that Russia said the same thing about Syria, standing down and just giving up, when effectively it was discovered that didn't necessarily happen in the way they've stated, and that according to high-level Syrian officials, that the Russians didn't help them out in areas where they were supposed to be shooting at. And you can probably go to Vanessa's Substack, Vanessa Beely's Substack, where she does deep dives on all of this with evidence and with proof, as she was there. So I find it interesting that a lot of the Russian influencers channels are pushing that narrative, saying, yeah, Venezuela gave up and Maduro gave up, blah, 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 blah. Like, and it's very easy to make these like blanket statements, like Maduro did it, he was in on it, but at least 80 people died defending him, and it wasn't just Cubans. There was, I think, at least 40 Cubans or something like that, substantial amount of them that died defending him. But there was a fight, and by the way, there was at least seven U.S. Troops that were injured in this fight with Maduro. Do I think he knew that it was coming? Yeah. I think they had a plan in place. I think they knew that something was happening. And I do find it odd that there wasn't enough of a defense. But let me just put a realistic thing down for you. They didn't have the mechanisms to fight the United States. And they don't. What else can they do is something that, you know, a good friend of mine has said. You're going to criticize what they're doing. Well, what else can they do? What do you advise them to do? You know, and I'd say, well, to continue fighting, you know, the US and what?
Yeah.
Fighting the US and do what? Realistically, they don't have the capacity to fight. They might have the hand-to-hand combat capacity, right? Which is why the United States didn't go in like that. Which is why they exercise a military operation to take out Maduro. But does Venezuela have the capacity? No. Where were China and Russia? Did they come in and give them the weapons and the training to use these weapons? No. Venezuela knew they were on their own. They knew, after Syria, by the way, this is a fact. They knew that Russia wasn't going to come to their aid. And nobody's saying, hey, Russia had to come to their aid, or that China had to fly in and come to their aid. But actually, a lot of people were trying to push that narrative that they were going to come in and they were going to save Venezuela. And I told you guys they're not going to do that, and they didn't do that, and they're not going to do that. Venezuela is important because of the oil, because they're a country that has oil. They have resources that they can at least negotiate with. If they didn't, they'd be gone, right? So at the very least, Venezuela has that. We're talking real politics now. We're not talking like even ideology or any of that. We're talking about the oil that Venezuela has. That is why, to a degree, they are important even to China and Russia because of that. But are they important enough for them to risk their, you know, entire geopolitical strategy of economic partnerships and advancement for them to go in and like send troops on the ground? No, guys, you're living in a crazy world if you think that. They were never going to go in and have turn on the US and fight the US. They have zero interest in fighting the United States. There are economic deals every day being made between China and the United States, and there are desires to make even more deals between Russia and the United States right now. And Russia and China also have their business deals. You need to understand that the world is functioning in a very transactional way, not in this ideological world where it's, you know, the Russians and the Chinese versus the United States. That is not what's happening anymore. That world, that idea that the hegemonic West is going to be counteracted is just not real. And I think a lot of people have failed to realize that. What is real is the pragmatism where we're taking this. And I've said this before, this is the age. It's like the age of just coming to transactional relationships. The age where that's where we're headed here. And the more you understand that, I think the better you'll understand like why things are happening the way they are.
What about this question right here? Do you know anything about this? Is oil still going to Cuba from Venezuela? And if it's not, what does that mean for Cuba? Have we heard anything? I mean, is China or Russia gonna step in and provide some oil to Cuba? Or then no, not at all. You're on your own. What's gonna happen?
No, I mean, I think Venezuela is still going to be sending oil to Cuba. Why? Yeah. I mean, of course they are. I mean, you had the Cubans that just sacrificed themselves. That relationship is strong. It's standing. The question is who's next and what's next for Delcy? You know, is she going to be still there? You know, being favored by the United States for now, or is it going to be, you know, something else? And you know, the other thing, guys, is the Machado.
Yeah.
Right. So Machado, she gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. We saw this, but Trump has, again, he's not at all said that he's going to back her. He's not at all said he's going to support her. And, you know, there's none of this, right? That's going on right now. And one of the things the Venezuela analysis mentions is that Delcy Rodriguez talked about last year reforming the Venezuela's hydrocarbon law in order to promote foreign investment. So this has been ongoing for a year now, like the promotion of foreign investment, the opening up of Venezuela to foreign capital. Okay, this isn't anything new. And so what it's new if you've just started paying attention because of what's going on with Venezuela. But the people who know Venezuela and who have been talking about Venezuela are friends who, you know, we know are very much focused on Latin America. They've been talking about this stuff for a while. And so Rodriguez really said that Venezuela has the right to maintain ties with China, Russia, Cuba, Iran, as well as the US. So they're pretty much taking that whole multi-polar line, right? We're gonna have relationships with everybody. We're gonna be able to open up to different markets. She wants to strengthen bilateral relations with Washington without subordination. That is my issue here. How do you do that? I have not seen that being done. Not with a country like Venezuela. I have not seen that be done. I have a hard time believing that the United States respects any sort of cooperation. They look on that as weakness, especially Donald Trump. It's like a win. If I don't win, like I lose, so I can't lose. So it's win-lose. You have to lose for me to win. It's this mentality that we're pushing. So my issue with this whole thing is how are you going to get out of that, like that cycle? Like, you're going to cooperate. How much are you going to cooperate, right? And we're going to see this also happen with Iran as well. We're seeing this kind of like fine lining between Iran and there'll be a lot more to look at from there. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that there's some comments in there like, man, I listening to Fia, I feel more educated, but I also just feel down to earth and depressed and upset. That's like, you're ruining the hope here, right? Yeah, the hopium there, you're cutting people off right now, fam. But I think you're being very clear about also what's to come, because I think a lot remains to be seen. Delcy Rodriguez, even though she is a Chavista and her father has a lot of roots as far as being a guerrilla fighter and all this, she still is a businesswoman, right? And I think that, when you said earlier in your segment, well, what else can you do at what point? You have no choice but to do some type of dealing, but to what degree? And I think a lot remains to be seen. I think it is a hard question to answer with whether, there was people within that government that gave up, or the military that gave up, turned a blind eye or whatever, or what some deal was made. There are some people who feel for sure that, Maduro was sacrificed so that Venezuela could go on. So people feel that Maduro was a part of it, the way he kind of is just acting all chill and seems to be trolling, everybody and every single picture looking all cool and whatnot in New York. I think a lot remains to be seen. But really, in the early stages of this whole situation, we have to see how much sovereignty Venezuela has, because we do have the dipshit president out there claiming that he's now the leader, he's now the president, he's calling the shots. We've gotten the oil. Somebody posed a question: Is oil still going to Cuba? Venezuela supplies Cuba with the majority of their oil, from what I understand. Is that going to happen, or are they going to shut that whole shit down? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. I think will be answered in the next coming days. But people who have been paying attention to Venezuela understood where they were at. I think a lot of people also understood, when people, there's so many people here like, well, if you have this with our economic system, we become Venezuela. I'm like, our economic system and Venezuela's economic system has less to do with their state, their current state, than what the foreign apparatus has to do, the military industrial complex, the geopolitics. That determines so much of what a country can do with their imports and exports. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Especially, we're going to learn a lot, I think, in the next coming days. So.
And you posted something about Code Pink, or was that me?
That was not me. That was you.
Okay.
Jayme, you want to that up?
Yeah, so there was a failed war powers resolution in the Senate. JD Vance broke a 50-50 tied vote on a point of order to discard the resolution. 70% of the U.S. opposes this war. This government isn't representing them. It's representing the oil and arms industry. So, so it failed. It was a joint resolution to direct the removal of U.S. armed forces from hostilities within or against Venezuela. So the majority of people don't want this to continue. But again, this is nothing new. This has been happening for a long time.
Can I make a point on that too as well? Well, you saw more of this, guys. If you didn't wake up to the whole confirmations of RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, especially with Tulsi, right? Like Tulsi had to pretty much push back against Edward Snowden, something she had been for, as far as transparency and the fact that the government was spying on us. She had to push back against them. She had to flip her position on Assad. She had to just go along, and it was all because the Senate was forcing RFK, forcing Tulsi to feel that way. Now, I'm disappointed in the jobs they've done. And Tulsi Gabbard alone, I think a couple weeks ago we were supposed to have a show, but then it got canceled. We had pointed out how Tulsi could turn completely, CIA mentality all of a sudden, something she was opposing against. I don't like the job she is doing at all. And I don't think she's being vocal enough when it comes to Venezuela. There's an old tweet of her out there saying we shouldn't be involved in regime change. Now she's going along with it. However, that her Senate confirmation should be telling to you, the people, that the Senate does not represent the people whatsoever. They represent themselves, their donors, whatnot. And any type of confirmation hearing for anybody trying to get a job within this government has to go along with the mentality of the Senate. And the mentality of the Senate is pro-war, anti-transparency, anti-freedom. It's a government, a Senate for the ruling class and not the people. And so this doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. It's sadly not surprising at all.
Unfortunately, yeah.
One of the last things on this section, guys, and pretty much ending
The show,
the show here, was Delcy Rodriguez has made a lot of recent changes in appointments in the last few days. So she said that I informed the country that I have appointed VA Anibal Coronado as the new Minister of Popular Power for Transportation. We thank the commitment and work of Comrade Ramon Velasquez Araguayan, who has been in charge of the ministerial portfolio. Likewise, I've appointed Freddy Nanez as the new Minister of Popular Power of Eco-Socialism. Now he will have the task of continuing to promote public policies for the protection of our Pachamama, Mother Earth, and everything related to environmental matters. At the Ministry of the Popular Power for Communication and Information will be the philosopher, writer, and communicator Miguel Perez Pirela. His academic background, experience, and conviction will continue to strengthen the communication and battle in defense of Venezuela's truth. So she did several changes, including I think Saab was removed from his position. A lot of people again aren't talking about this stuff.
What does that mean to you, fam? What is that really right off the bat? Like all these changes would say to somebody, all right, she's getting the aces in places to do business with the Donald Trump administration over here. That's why we see, I mean, that's what people are going to say. Your thoughts?
No, that's the normal thing to perceive, right? But the thing is, all the people she's replacing with others are all Chavistas. So it's like, you're okay, she's replacing them, but she's replacing them with Chavistas. So like, is it like was she always going to replace them? I've read that she was always going to. This is like the footprint or the blueprint that Maduro was to follow, said to follow in case any of this happened. This is why some people think Maduro was in on it, right? That Maduro knew, or at the very least he knew this was going to happen, because he allegedly left like a plan as to what to do in case he was taken, right? And knowing Maduro from, and like I don't see him as somebody that would sell his people out. I see him as somebody that would sacrifice himself for his people. There's a difference. And I think I don't see Maduro as the guy that would just leave his people and never make a statement, never talk. It's not because of an emotional thing with Maduro. It's just based on the actions he has taken his whole career. He has never been under question in terms of like the loyalty he has. He's literally arrested in prison. He didn't escape. Like, for example, we can talk about Assad, right? Assad left. He was taken out with help of the Russians. He was escorted. He's in Moscow now. He has never made a public statement. There are a lot of people that are facing a really hard time right now. His most trusted leadership that are not in good circumstances in general all over the world because of his actions. There's a lot of people that are upset at him because he never made a statement. Nicolas Maduro was captured and taken by the United States, right? Like there's parallels and there's differences. I have a hard time seeing that Maduro would sell out his people. I have an easier time thinking that Maduro is more likely the type of person that would rather go down, try to make a deal with the United States to save Venezuela and to still allow Chavismo to remain in control. And that's a potential calculated decision that was made. I don't know. I don't have confirmation of that, but this is just what I'm saying based on everything I'm saying. I don't see a betrayal of Maduro, of Venezuela, to gain favor of the United States. He could have done that in a different way and not been sitting in prison. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said, Pasta. There's a lot more information to come. But, I think in order to not make like just unsubstantiated statements,
Yeah.
based on everything that I'm seeing, I just have a hard time thinking that Maduro sold out Venezuela. Like it's more so that Maduro was willing to go in order to allow Chavismo and the people to continue. And we may not like what's happening. We may think it's why are they talking to the CIA? Why is she shifting positions? This looks bad. From a PR perspective, I could agree. It looks like there's been concessions made. It looks like, but am I going to say, oh yes, Venezuela sold out, Venezuela's done? Like, no, because I don't have proof of that. I don't have proof of that. The officials are saying otherwise. So, I'm just going to let you all know what they're saying, also what it looks like, and then you can draw your own conclusions from that. But I think, as Pasta said, there will be more information to come soon.
We shall see, fam. We shall see. Guys, all the links down below to help the show out are right there in the description. I want to thank Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. And, of course, Fiorella Fam, my business partner, for coming on in today to do the show, but also for holding it down on Drive Time last week. It was an amazing show. That will still go on Wednesday. Wednesday, we'll have a day show. Fam will be on assignment, but we have an interview with Mark Sloboda. We'll be playing a little something beforehand, so you can always join us Wednesday. But Fam will be back on Friday if you want to rock with the Convo Couch. I will also be on The Homeless Left tomorrow, Tuesday, with Matt Weinglass. And, of course, I have that Wednesday show, Drive Time, 4 p.m. Eastern. Fam, do you have a show coming up this week with Vanessa or anything else we can look for?
Yeah, tomorrow we'll film it. So depending, we'll have it posted soon after that. So I'll update you guys on Substack. I've been all over the place, traveling all over the place, and finally getting settled for a few months.
I got books for you here. I gotta send you books. I got so many books from our fams out there. You know what I'm saying? So talking about friendly, brilliant. Yes, baby Ruth, we love you. I got some stuff to send you, so we got to get together or see each other sooner than later. But that's it for today, fams. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We'll be back on Wednesday. You can check us out there, fam. We'll be back on Friday, and we will release all our stuff out there. Until then, it's time to go. Truth out.
Bye.